Hey guys, I want to welcome you back to another episode of Pistons Talk Podcast post-game show. Apologize for being a few minutes late, but we're going to get into this post-game show. If you're brand new here, what we do is we go over quarter notes, some key notes that I take during the games. Then I open up the show, questions, comments. It's kind of like an open forum. If you have any thoughts with tonight's game, particular play, maybe it was about the just a crazy amount of free throws. I think this game actually took 3 hours with the amount of fouls tonight. Uh, Crazy. I'm sure we'll we'll talk about that tonight. But let's get into today's post game show on this Friday night for another 30 minutes because it's going to be Saturday probably by the time we're done talking and recording this podcast. But good thing Duncan Robinson was back because the Pistons really needed him in this game. He missed 2 games with a sprained ankle. This was his first game back. So had him back in the starting lineup. This was a game really early on in the first quarter that Portland looked to attack the Pistons in transition, tried to get to the painted area, and very early on, it seemed to be working. I didn't really know which I should say I didn't really know how this game was going to go. I felt like the momentum shifted so many times with both of these teams because Portland's played zone. We've seen a lot of teams play zone as of late. We saw it with the Hawks. We saw it last game. And we saw it tonight with the Portland Trailblazers. They played a 2-3 zone against the Pistons multiple times, multiple defensive possessions in this one. But the Pistons did move the ball and they shot over the middle of the zone, which is a good way to kind of negate it, in my personal opinion. And the Pistons fed Jalen Duren in the post, which I don't think Portland really had a body that they could put on Jalen Duren outside of Robert Williams. And because Donovan Clingan was obviously injured. And I thought if the Pistons really wanted to attack that weakness with Portland, they could. And I thought they did it multiple times tonight with Jalen Duren and with Isaiah Stewart. And they did play double bigs in the first, which I thought was kind of interesting because we haven't really seen double bigs since Tobias Harris got hurt. They only played it for about a minute, which I didn't know if they were going to, kind of extend it, take advantage, kind of play bully ball. But Pistons were fortunate to exit the first quarter with the 2-point lead, 30-28. Coming into the second, Ron Holland, man, he was such a dog tonight. Oh my goodness. He had a defensive possession, and we watched Jeremy Grant here for a few years. I've never seen Jeremy Grant just so frustrated. Ron Holland must have watched a lot of film on Jeremy Grant. I wish they would have interviewed him after the game, but I mean, just the way he was defending, just being a pest out there. Isaiah Stewart, unfortunately, did pick up his third foul, so we didn't really get to see much of Isaiah Stewart in the second quarter. And I thought, part of the second quarter, the officials just weren't consistent, right? 1 minute they're allowing physicality, the next minute they aren't. The consistency with the whistle tonight was really weird. Like we could be physical on defense, and then the very next play, if Portland tried to be physical, it was a foul, and vice versa. I'm not saying that the Pistons got hosed by the officials tonight, but they just were not consistent whatsoever. Ray Acosta, like the more I watch this official, it gets to a point where like if you call a foul on a player, I think you should at least talk them through it. Hey, why was this a foul? He walks away. He turns his back to these players. Like I don't really think that's a good thing for the league. I know I'm rambling a little bit about, him as an official, but every time I see him officiate games, he literally just walks away from whoever he's talking to if he doesn't like the conversation. I think it's really immature, and I think it's really soft too, mentally, just in my opinion. But Pistons were able to make stops in the second quarter, push the pace. They were up 10, and then Portland kind of goes on this little run. They got it down to 3, and then Cade Cunningham was able to get it back up to 7. He was fouled really late in the second quarter. Got to the free throw line 3 times, and the Pistons had a 7-point lead, 65-58 going into halftime. The third quarter happened, and it's a thing where it's starting to become a trend. Like the third quarter for us over these past couple of games have been really bad. We came out of halftime just like really lethargic, no energy whatsoever. Portland was hitting 3-point shots. They were getting to the free throw line. JB took a timeout in the third quarter, and I want to mention this on the podcast, okay? So he takes a timeout. He did not talk. He's just standing at the baseline, and the players talked it out in the third quarter. Kind of a Phil Jackson type of timeout. If you guys are old enough, Phil Jackson used to do that all the time with the Lakers. He would call a timeout, and he wouldn't say anything. He would let the players talk among themselves. And that's what happened in the third quarter, and it seemed like it kind of worked. The Pistons got back into this game. It was kind of a tug-of-war. Portland tried to dictate the flow, and they were just a little bit more aggressive in this third quarter. Unfortunately, the Pistons were only down one after the third quarter did end. It was 85-84 going into the fourth, which was really huge. Kamara, who is one of their better defenders, he fouled out very early in this fourth quarter. He was just giving Cade a lot of problems, a lot of issues. That was a rookie last year that made second team all defense. The second team as a rookie, like that's really good. Kind of tells you what kind of defender he is. It's not really an offensive threat yet, but if he ever does become an offensive threat, Portland has got a stud in Kamara. Ron Holland was just making big play after big play. He had a 3-pointer off glass, and he looked surprised when it went in. I was surprised when it went in. And then towards the end of the fourth, okay? So Tobias gets hacked. Gets his elbow basically hit. No call. Jeremy Grant, hits a 3-point shot, kicks his legs out, which he did a couple times in this game. And it turned into a 7-point swing because it was a flagrant foul because Asar Thompson apparently was in his landing space. So flagrant foul, 2 free throws, and they got the ball back, and then Denny Avdia makes a mid-range jumper. So it was a 7-point swing for the Pistons, and that was a very big, crucial moment for them. But Duncan Robinson hit 2 big 3-pointers in this fourth quarter. It was a huge momentum shift. Cade Cunningham did his thing as well in the fourth quarter. And the Pistons survived this one because I really felt this game could have gone any way, depending on how this was officiated, depending on how we didn't shoot the ball the best, I think, tonight. But they do win this one 122-116. This was not a fun game to watch. And it's not that I didn't have fun watching the Pistons or, going up against the Blazers. It's just when you call that many fouls in a game, it's not enjoyable for the fan. I think the NBA has to do a better job of regulating what physicality that they'll allow without blowing their whistle. I think some refs, when you look at who's officiating the game, there's going to be some bullshit. When I see Ray Acosta, I know there's going to be some bullshit. But I want to open up the show to comments and questions. We're just going to go over the box score real quick, and then should be a chill rest of the podcast. I have another podcast tomorrow with you guys. We're not going to be doing a post-game show. We're going to be having Sean Murphy on, and we're just going to be doing our podcast that we usually would record on Sunday on Saturday. So that'll probably be like over an hour, maybe 2, depending on how long me and Sean talk. That should have a lot of fun topics for you guys, but did want to give you guys kind of this little program update there. But let's get into this box score. So tonight, Tobias Harrison, 31 minutes, had 10 points, 3 out of 10 from the field, 1 out of 3 from 3, 3 out of 4 from the free throw line, had 4 rebounds, 4 assists, only 1 turnover, was a +1. Tobias Harris is such a random player. 1 minute he'll shoot 90% from the field, in other games he'll go 2 for 12 or 3 for 10. It's just wildly inconsistent. He still was productive in this one, had 10 points. We'll take it, right? Duncan Robinson, first game back, 34 minutes, 14 points, 4 to 7 from the field, 4 to 6 from 3, perfect from the free throw line, 7 big rebounds, 2 steals. It was a +4. He actually had something really funny to say on the postgame podcast when he was postgame interview. I'm in podcast mode. Apologize. Saying that he couldn't guard his own shadow tonight, and he actually gave props to Stu. The fact that he roasted himself defensively is actually funny, and it's accountability at the same time. So I did appreciate that by him, because I felt like defensively he did struggle tonight a little bit. Jalen Duren in this one only played 27 minutes, had 18 points, 6 out of 11 from the field, 6 out of 9 from the free throw line, 8 rebounds, 6 turnovers in this one. He had the ball in his hands quite a bit, and you kind of have to credit Portland for that. They were just really all over him, but you don't really see Jalen Duren have high turnover games like that. Cade Cunningham in this one, 36 minutes, 29 points, 7 out of 15 from the field, 2 out of 4 from 3, 13 out of 14 from the free throw line. Got to the free throw line quite a bit. 4 rebounds, 9 assists, only 1 turnover, which, hey, man, that's progress right there. We'll take the 1 turnover all day. 3 steals, and he was a -4 in this one. Asar Thompson probably had his most productive game we've seen in quite some time. He was way more aggressive. 25 minutes tonight in this one. 15 points, 6 out of 12, 50% from the field. Did attempt 1 3 really late in the fourth quarter in the corner. 3 out of 5 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 turnover, 1 steal. I felt like he could have had 4 steals tonight. The ball was just bouncing Portland's way, but he had a really productive game. He was very aggressive. Love to see that from Asar. Would like to see that more from him on a night-to-night basis. Isaiah Stewart off the bench in this one, 22 minutes, 9 points, shot 3 out of 7 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, 3 out of 4 from the free throw line, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 4 big blocks by Stu in this one, plus 10. JB said it during the post-game show with FanDuel. He feels that Isaiah Stewart is the best defensive center in the league, and I mean, some of the blocks he had, that monster block that he had on Shaedon Sharpe that the refs called a foul, and we had to challenge it. That was probably one of the cleanest blocks I've ever seen. I mean, Shaedon Sharpe was trying to end Stu. He cranked it back like all the way to his head, and Stu got a piece of it. Crazy block. Ron Holland in this one, another big game by him. 20 minutes tonight, 17 points. 6 out of 11 from the field, 3 out of 6 from 3, 2 out of 5 from the free throw line, 3 rebounds, 1 steal, plus 7 in this one. He was just everywhere, crashing the glass, getting to the free throw line, making some acrobatic finishes, having that 3-pointer off glass, which was hilarious. Made 3 3-pointers in this one. I mean, he's just getting more confident. I know a lot of us were very concerned if he was kind of entering that sophomore slump, because you do see that sometimes with second-year players. But I think whatever funk that he was in, I think he's completely shaked it off. He's been way more aggressive. And it's kind of the Ron Holland we saw last year, right? We saw a rookie come off the bench and just bring instant energy, and it's infectious. You see it with the second unit. Javonte Green in this one played 4 minutes, didn't really do anything, but, got 4 minutes. I think JB is starting to shorten his rotations a little bit. I think he's going to kind of roll with Ron Holland a little bit more if he's going to continue to keep playing like that. Karis LeVert, he had 16 minutes in this one, 4 points. Perfect from the field, 2 out of 2, 2 rebounds. Didn't really play him too much. Jaden Ivey only played 10 minutes. He's still on a minute restriction. He had 2 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. He did have a couple of fouls where I think that's why JB only played him 10 minutes, because they kept throwing him on Denny Avdia when they were doing switches. And I think that's the reason why Jaden Ivey only played 10 minutes tonight. Dennis Jenkins in this one played 14 minutes, 4 points, 1 out of 4 from the field, perfect from the free throw line, had 3 assists in this one. It was a +6. But, overall, I mean, you could just really look at Cade Cunningham in this one, Asar being impactful, Jalen Duren, just feasting in the paint. Ron Holland's big minutes off the bench, I think, were all needed. Duncan Robinson's 3-pointers were just all needed. Listen, and I mentioned it a couple of times, and I highlighted the fouls. I highlighted the free throw attempts, like 35 fouls for Portland, 29 for the Pistons. Nobody wants to watch that. Portland was 32 out of 35 from the free throw line, so 91%. The Pistons were 36 out of 48, 75%. Um, when you get to the free throw line that much, you're going to have to, make your free throws at a little bit higher clip, I do think. But you did get to win this one. But if we didn't win, I think that's something that we would be pointing to is not cashing in on our free throws. Shooting night was kind of average for the Pistons, 46%, 42 from three in this one. Nothing really crazy. I mean, Pistons that had 24 assists. They're still turning the ball over, but it was down to 14. It's not 20, so that is progress. Took a little bit better care of the basketball. Portland had a really bad night just taking care of the basketball. They had 20 turnovers in this one. Points in the paint, Pistons beat Portland 54-46. But let's open up the show, you guys, to Q&A. Favorite part of the podcast. So let's get to it. I do see a comment from Pistons fan 11. And let me kind of sit up a little bit because I'm kind of leaned back. My chair's hydraulic system completely took a crap. So I'll be talking and I'll just kind of be like going down. But he said, it sounds to me like Isaiah Thomas might be willing to mentor Cade given his first quarter comments. That sounds good to me. Maybe he can help Jenkins too. Not that Cade needs help, but Zeke over Carmelo. So if you guys didn't watch the game tonight, tonight was George Blaha bobblehead night. There was a lot of Detroit Pistons legends in the building. Isaiah Thomas was with George and Greg during the first quarter. They talked for about 12 minutes. And Isaiah Thomas said something that I think a lot of Pistons fans either will take one or two ways. Either you thought he insulted Cade Cunningham or any of the assistant coaches on this coaching staff, or you agree with him. What Isaiah said was, when I was in the league, I had mentors in my ear, pointing me in the right direction. He said, I had Dave Bing when I first started. He said, I had Magic Johnson as a mentor. I think what Isaiah Thomas was saying is like, Cade Cunningham hasn't had a mentor to kind of just walk him through every part of his career. He probably should have had a mentor, if you do ask me. I don't think what Isaiah Thomas said was out of bounds whatsoever. I don't. Obviously, him and Jarek Jack are very close. I think Jarek Jack is a very good mentor. If Isaiah Thomas wants to mentor Cade Cunningham or Cade reaches out to him, sure. But Isaiah said he's kind of done it organically without any help, without any former players or former, Pistons legends or NBA legends for that matter, to kind of give him just words of advice. I would have done this differently. I don't really think Isaiah Thomas meant any disrespect towards it. I think he meant it in the right light. I did see some Pistons fans a little bit upset about it, which I think you can take it one or two ways. Personally, I didn't really have any issues with what he said, and I think he's kind of right. Like, you'd like to see former Detroit Pistons players kind of, extend an olive branch to Cade, because that's the franchise player, right? That's the guy that is the face of the Detroit Pistons right now, and he suffered through a lot of losing his first couple of years in the league. In these past 2 years, he's kind of won way more games. You won 44 last season. You got to the playoffs for the first time in a while. You went against the New York Knicks in the first round, and it was a really entertaining series. This year you're off to a really great start. You have 18 wins. It's very early on in this young NBA season. We're only in December. Still a lot of basketball left, 60 plus games left in this season. But if Isaiah wants to be the mentor, if it's maybe not a Detroit Piston, maybe it's a guy like a Rajon Rondo, who I know said that he likes Cade's game. We've heard players like Carmelo Anthony saying he wants to work with Cade to kind of redefine his, go-to moves in the post, having, a couple moves that he can just hit and score on anybody. I mean, there's been a lot of NBA players, not just Detroit Pistons former players, but like former Hall of Famers that really like Cade's game, would love to mentor him. I know he did try to work with Carmelo Anthony this summer, but their schedules just didn't really match up. So, I mean, that could be something where Melo kind of takes him under his wing and is his mentor. I know there are other players on the Detroit Pistons that have mentors. I know for a fact that Rasheed Wallace is a very big mentor for Jalen Duren. Like those guys talk. Jalen Duren works out with Rasheed. You'd like to have Cade do the same thing. We don't really know. He might, talk to some, other NBA players that he does work with, but again, I don't really think Isaiah Thomas meant anything bad by it. It's just kind of his observation, maybe. I'm gonna get to Marquez. Talking about the refs were ridiculous tonight. That said, the Pistons, particularly Cade, looked tired tonight, but found a way to win. I know I touched on it a couple post-game podcasts ago, and this is very nitpicky, so I do apologize if this does ruffle some feathers. Cade plays a lot of minutes, 35 to 38 minutes tonight, sometimes more, depending on how close this game is. I worry with this NBA season how much energy and how fresh he will be come playoff time. Now, I know that's easier said than done. A lot of these games are going down to the wire. We don't really have too many games this year where we've won by 20 plus, right? So it's easier said than done. The second unit, I think right now, we don't really have a guard that can substitute and give Cade a good 5 to 7 minutes of rest. We just don't, right? I know last season, him and Jaden Ivey were staggering and kind of gave Cade a little bit of rest there. When we acquired Dennis Schroeder at the deadline, he was giving Cade, a lot of rest because the Pistons were able to have a lead guard on the second unit to kind of orchestrate everything. And, everything didn't become completely chaotic, right? I think right now JB's trying to figure that out. He's trying to figure out between Danis Jenkins, Jaden Ivey, and Karis LeVert who's going to be that lead guard to lead the second unit. And he's doing it on the fly. Where last year was a lot different. I do worry about Cade Cunningham, though. I worry about, through a long NBA season, and then you get to the playoffs, like how fresh is this guy actually going to be, right? I did think coming out of halftime, they looked very lethargic. They looked exhausted, but they kind of got into a different mindset come the fourth quarter. And they won that fourth quarter, and obviously they won the game. But it is something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. I know we have trade deadline in February. These next couple of months are going to be interesting to see what names are attached to the Detroit Pistons. It really would, but I just worry about his minutes. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm worrying too much. Maybe I shouldn't be worrying about him playing 35 to 38 minutes a night, but that's just me. Want to get to DJ Billy Bob. He does have a comment about Paul Reed, kind of a question, right? And it's about why he doesn't play. I think the main reason why that Paul Reed doesn't play on a consistent basis is just a situation of rotations, and you have bigs right now in Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren. They get a bulk of the minutes night in and night out. It's not to say that Paul Reed isn't capable of filling in for either of them. We've seen Paul Reed start. We've seen him come off the bench. We saw it last game when Isaiah Stewart got ejected for trying to fight with Bobby Portis, right? I think it's just a situation where he's your third string center, and there'll be nights where he doesn't play. There'll be nights that he'll fill in, and he could play a good 10 to 15, possibly more off your bench. It's just kind of a luxury that they have a guy like a Paul Reed on a nightly basis. I'd like to see him play a little bit more, but I mean, when you have Duren and Stewart as your number one and number two options at center, I think it's kind of difficult to figure out who you're going to play on a night-to-night basis. I do see a lot of comments coming in on our post-game show. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take a quick break so I can kind of just go through all of these comments because I want to get to as much as I can. And I do want to kind of take a drink of water because my throat feels like absolute glass. So we'll be right back after a quick commercial break, you guys. Okay, you guys, we are back. I did have a drink of water, so my throat doesn't feel like glass anymore. And this is this time of the year where I get a little sick, but I do see a couple of comments that you guys are leaving in the live chat right now. I do appreciate it watching me on this Friday night, almost Saturday night. I do see a comment from Derek Brown I do want to get into. This is probably going to be a podcast topic tomorrow, but I will talk about it briefly uh, because Derek did bring it up. He's referring to a tweet that went out today. Vinny Goodwell or Vince Goodwell that works for ESPN is projecting Jalen Duren for a 5-year, $185 million contract. That would be a huge overpay in Derek's opinion. I did see it. Now, there's been a lot of reporting with the extensions, and we talked about it at nauseum with Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. I was under the assumption Jalen Duren would have received one. I was wrong. I'll admit when I was wrong. I really thought he was going to get one. Excuse me. I think when you look at kind of the centers that are in that market, right? Because you have to tier them. Like the top centers in the league, obviously, like Jokic and Embiid and Cat, those are all $50 million centers. And you have your $40 million centers like Evan Mobley and others, and then it kind of goes to the 30 million. Like that projection is similar to Alper and Sengun in Houston, right? Now, I'm not saying that Jalen Duren isn't worth $37 million a year. What I am saying is if you want that kind of money, you have to show in and night out and produce on both ends of the floor. Now, can he do that? We've seen it in flashes this year where he has, 20, 30-point games and he's playing, okay defense, good defense. But I think it just gets to a point when you're trying to build a team, it does get a little bit expensive because Kate Cunningham is on a super max. Jalen Duren would be around, 36, $37 million a year. It depends if you do a 5-year. You could do a 4-year and really front load it. That would be around 45 to $46 million a year. honestly, I can understand the fans' perspective of looking at Jalen Duren and looking at that type of contract and comparing it to like a Alperen Sengun, who is more productive offensively, but to not as good a defender as Jalen Duren. But I mean, it just gets to a point where like there was a lot of rumblings all summer that Jalen Duren wanted to get paid. I didn't really know what the projection number was. I don't really think too many people actually knew what he was asking for. Now we know he's looking to get the bag this summer. More power to him. More power to his agent. If he can get him the bag, I just don't know. Right now, if he's $185 million player, obviously you do want to keep him on your team. You want to keep this core intact as much as you possibly can. But I just kind of go back to listening to Trajan on the Zach Lowe podcast, kind of talk about, trying to keep a team competitive as possible without kind of getting into the apron. I mean, if you were to add Cade's contract, and let's just say hypothetically Jalen Duren does get that 5-year 185, it's over 50% of your cap space between Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren. But we'll probably go more in depth tomorrow on the podcast with Sean about that Jalen Duren report, but I'm kind of indifferent on it. I don't think that it will be an overpay in a few years because the cap space is going to continue to go up and the salary cap is going to continue to go up. But I can understand from a fan perspective looking at that contract and saying, absolutely not. That's crazy. But I want to sleep on it a little bit more and think about it more because it just came out, and I think I could easily talk myself into maybe a shorter term contract, but where Jalen Duren gets the money, right? Maybe you give him a 3-year deal and he gets the money and it's not attached for 5 years. Kind of like what they did with Jalen Green, right? A few years ago in Houston, where they gave him the type of money he was looking for, but they didn't give him the 5 years. They gave him the 3 years. Maybe the Pistons do something like that. We've seen them be very creative in the front office with the contracts that they've given out. Trajan and Michael Blackstone and company. But it'll be interesting to see what they do this summer. I have no idea what Jalen Duren's market is. If that's what they're asking for, he's going to have to go and show out every night. That's all I'm going to say, and I'll leave it at that. Camille had a comment. What do you think the biggest reason behind the Pistons' lack of effort? They looked very unmotivated in the last 7 games. I think at times when it's clicking, they look great. And I think during this stretch recently, when they've been going up against zone defense, I feel like they're very frustrated because they can't get to the paint and the other teams are scoring, and the Pistons kind of seem like a step slow to get back in transition defense. I wouldn't say they look unmotivated. I think it's more of just frustration because a lot of teams didn't know how to game plan for them because they were just going in the paint like every game. But more coaches are just scheming up. We're just going to play zone defense. Like Portland tonight was playing a 2-3 zone. The Bucks did something similar earlier in the week, and you saw Atlanta do that as well. So I think it's just them adjusting to teams having more tape on them in the this part of the season. I think the third quarters lately, it could kind of come off of being unmotivated. But I think it's just a combination of more teams having more tape on you. The rotation thing is really weird still because you're trying to play a bunch of guys when I think you should just maybe play 9 to 11 at the most. I think that's kind of hurt the flow of the games as of late, but I don't think they're unmotivated. I just think at times they kind of get in funks offensively, especially when the Bucks game is a good example where like I thought they were going to win that game, but Milwaukee did a really good job defensively of just kind of taking away the paint. So it could kind of look like lack of effort or unmotivated. I think it's just them trying to adjust to how teams want to defend them night in and night out. Wes Weaver as Chris Paul, yes or no? Probably no, just because I know he doesn't want to be away from his family right now. A big reason why he went to the Clippers was because his kids are out in California. So I think if Chris Paul does go anywhere, it's probably on the West Coast. I don't think he wants to be too far away from his family. The whole Clippers thing is wild to me. Him calling out kind of the coaching staff and calling out top to bottom from the front office, the ownership, and then kind of getting cut completely wild. And then the Tyronn Lue clip that surfaced today saying FCP3. I don't know how you treat someone that made your franchise relevant. I really don't. I mean, that would be like if, hypothetically, like they did the same thing to Cade, right? With if Cade was just like, a vet in his like 20th year when he was like in his 40s, and like we had a brand new coaching staff and an organization and they cut him. Like the process behind that is really bad on the Clippers part. It looks really bad from an organization standpoint. Maybe CP3 to the Lakers. I don't know. He says he still wants to play, but he might just retire and chill and just collect his final check for the remainder of the year. I mean, he's had his dues. It's a shame he hasn't been able to win a championship. I really wanted to see him at least win one championship in his career because he's just been a really good player, really good point guard. I've really enjoyed watching him, as a kid and as a young adult. But yeah, Clippers are just a bad organization. I don't get how it gets to that point and the situation gets escalated that bad to the point where like you're flying to Atlanta and then basically telling them like, yeah, we don't want you anymore. So weird. Red Bear does have a comment about Jeremy Grant saying, how about Grant as a trade target is, well, he plays hard on defense and is crafty on offense. I've always liked Jeremy Grant from afar. Even when he was with Denver, I liked his time here in Detroit, but I think what a lot of fans got on his ass during the rebuild was he was still trying to get his 20 when we had a rookie Cade Cunningham that was starting to, get into his own, getting more confident and kind of taking the ball out of Cade's hands. Towards the end, before they did trade him, he was kind of deferring to Cade. The only thing with Jeremy Grant is he's on a pretty big deal. He signed a huge contract when he did go to Portland. I'm just not really sure what the Detroit Pistons are looking for in the trade market. I have my opinions on what I think they should do. I think they should look for more three-point shooting. That's why we talked about I'm trying to think of the names we talked about. I think we talked about Kobe White. We talked about Dante DiVincenzo. We talked about Grayson Allen, Kevin Herter, just three-point shooters. Even Keon Ellis, even though he just had a Tony Snell game the other day I saw. But I think the Pistons need more three-point shooting. Like, you've seen the type of gravity that Duncan Robinson has. I think adding another perimeter shooter of Duncan's caliber, not saying you're going to get another guy that can hit threes the way he can or can hit 200 threes in a season. I honestly think that the way that the team is kind of built and constructed, you need more three-point shooting. I'm not really entirely sure what the market is for three-point shooters right now. But if it was me, just my opinion, I honestly think that I would look to add more three-point shooting. But that's just me. That's just me. I did see a comment that I do want to kind of answer because it was referring to Jalen Dern. I kind of just want to answer it. It's from Arthur Jackson. So you're saying it's better for a guy to take less money. Good teams pay the best players. No, I wasn't really saying that. I was saying like from a team building standpoint, I think it does get difficult when guys want to get paid. But you're right. I mean, like there have been teams in the past that have paid all of their guys and they've grown internally. I'm just saying, like, when you kind of look at the centers across the league that are on deals similar to what Jalen Duren is trying to get to, what he's trying to get, I think it becomes a little bit more difficult to get to a championship. And I think that's the goal, right? Obviously, I love Jalen Duren. I love what he brings. I just have to see it for the rest of the season. I have to see the productivity before I really have a firm opinion, because I think there can be stretches during an NBA season where, you're not playing some of your best basketball. And there'll be months where, you're putting together like, 24 and 12, couple blocks a game where, my opinion can change. Like my opinion is probably going to change, throughout the season. Obviously, Vinny has been all over kind of the contract extension all summer. I just think when you look at the team, Cade's locked up, Stu's locked up for the next couple of years. Duren and Ivy need new contracts. Then you have Asar Thompson to worry about. He'll be extension eligible. And then the year after that, you have Ron Holland. So it's just going to be more difficult to pay everybody. And I think that's the way you have to look at it. There will be a casualty. There will be someone on this core that isn't re-signed or traded. We all know that. We're expecting it. But I'm just going to have a wait and see approach with Duren. I know, obviously, I said, like, that's a lot of money, but if he can prove it, more power to him, more power to him and his agent. But I'll just kind of leave it at that, because I do want to kind of discuss it a little bit in detail more tomorrow on tomorrow's podcast with Sean. But do appreciate all of you guys watching tonight on this post-game podcast. We will see you guys tomorrow. On Sunday. We won't be having a post-game podcast, but we'll be recording immediately after the game, kind of just talking about all the latest news with the Detroit Pistons, some trade targets that different media sites have kind of linked to the Detroit Pistons, and anything else that does happen maybe before the podcast does air tomorrow. But appreciate all you guys watching as always. If you could, on the way out, hit the like button. Does really help push out our content to more Detroit Pistons fans just like you. And if you're not subscribed already, definitely hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 40,000 followers before the season does end. We just got to 30,000 followers, trying to grow this just one day at a time. Do appreciate each and every one of you that do to tune into these podcasts after every game. Hope you guys have a great weekend, great night, and as always, go Pistons. Peace.